have this ProPride hitch attached to my Airstream trailer, and last month I had a lot of trouble getting it hooked up. I was parked at my cousin's driveway, and it's on an incline like this, and you know, the transition to the road was very flat, and I had just a bear of a time getting hooked up, and I was bitching and complaining about it. And in light of that, I thought I'd give some more detailed thoughts on how I really feel about my ProPride hitch, and you know, the pros and cons of it. So to start with, the ProPride hitch is the same basic thing as a Hensley hitch. If you're familiar with a Hensley hitch, it's the same concept. A gentleman by the name of Jim Hensley actually owns the patent, and he's the one that came up with this design, and he licensed it to Hensley Manufacturing. I think that's the name of the company. They created the Hensley hitch, and then at some point, I guess, they parted ways. And Jim Hensley, who owns the patent, went on to also license it to ProPride. And they also continued to enhance it and make it a little bit better, some minor improvements. But for the most part, it's essentially the same thing as a Hensley hitch. So sometimes I just call it a Hensley hitch because that's kind of what it is. But from what I've read, the ProPride does have some minor enhancements that separate out from the Hensley hitch and make it a little bit better. But to be honest, I can't speak from experience because I don't have a Hensley hitch. So what is a Hensley hitch or a ProPride hitch? Well, here's the regular coupling on my Airstream, and there's this giant unit here, which is attached to that coupling along with a yoke. And you can see it's kind of got this trapezoidal, it's a little bit difficult to see with the camera, but it's got this trapezoidal mechanical layout, right? Which makes it move side to side like this, or turn in a specific way if it comes in. This trapezoidal movement that it has projects your pivot point up to your axle, like in your truck. So typically, you know, if you have just a regular hitch with a ball, you can get trailer sway. Your trailer starts going, you know, and disaster can strike. With this, it projects that pivot point up to the axle. So it's more kind of like a fifth wheel where it gets rid of trailer sway. In addition to that, it also, if you see here, it does have weight distribution bars are also built into it. The nice thing about it too is that you don't have to drill. You don't have to drill into the frame. It all mounts just with. It's all just bolted onto the A-frame. And here's the yoke here. So there's no permanent damage or anything to your frame on your trailer. So along with this giant hitch piece, you also get what we call the stinger. And so instead of a ball hitch, right, you have this. Slides into your truck, and this piece of the stinger slides right in here. So goes in like that, and then you can lock this. You lock this on here, and then you're all set. And this is the part that was hard to get on for me last month. So the pros and cons. The pro is basically that you eliminate trailer sway. Does it work? Yes, absolutely. I have to say, so we've been full-timing for about 1.5 years, and you know, we've towed, I don't know, 10 or 15,000 miles at least, all around the country. Never, not once, have I had any feeling of trailer sway. No matter how windy it's gotten. There's been cases, say on I-70, where we were driving and they closed down one side of the highway, so we were diverted to the other side, and we had oncoming traffic, 70 miles an hour, semi-trucks blowing by us with just cones in the middle, and as they blew by, nothing, no trailer sway at all. I mean, you can get, you know, if this is your truck and this is your trailer, instead of this, with big winds, you do get some movement where you can feel, oh, it's windy, but everything is moving in conjunction. There's none of this. It's just like this. And so it 100% works. All of this traveling with my family, I've never felt unsafe or that the trailer is out of control back there. And that's just huge. That's the big advantage of it right there. Get rid of trailer sway, and it works. Okay. The disadvantages of it. The number one is probably going to be price. So this whole unit, I think, came to roughly around $3,000. So it's pricey. Now, with that said, there's also really good resale value here. When I went to buy this, I actually went and tried to buy a used one first. I searched on Craigslist and around the internet, and it was so difficult to find them. And when I did find them, they were either way too far away for me to go purchase or to drive to, or, I mean, they were selling for 80-90% of it being new. So I mean, you know, $3,000, they were selling for $2,800 bucks, $2,800 for a used one, which is not surprising when you think about, I mean, this thing is just a hunk of steel. I mean, it's heavy duty, right? So there's not a lot here to kind of depreciate. It's not like it's a computer chip, right? I mean, this thing, I mean, it's just as good as it was when it was new, because it's just a giant hunk of steel. So it's expensive, but if you ever had to go sell it, you'd get a lot of your money back. And when I was looking at that, I'm like, well, that's, you know, over the long run, if I have to sell this when I'm all done doing this full-timing thing, and I get like 80 or 90% of my money back, then what? It's going to cost me a few $100 for eliminating trailer sway for all this traveling we're doing. Absolutely, you know, I'm going to say yes. After price, I would say the next disadvantage is hitching this thing up. As I alluded to, you know, last month I had trouble because the Airstream was like this and the truck was like this relative to it. So it's hard to get the stinger straight in there. You know, when you have just a ball hitch, doesn't matter which angle you're coming from or where the trailer is, you just fit it in there and plop it on there. With that said, 95% of the time it goes in no problem. And even the 5% of the time when I have a little bit of an issue, you know, fine, 5 or 10 minutes, I get it in there. If it's a real big problem like I had on Long Island last month, that at least experience has taught me that I can take a little bolt off back there that could then help me adjust this thing up and down in order to get it into the truck, into the stinger rather. So, you know, there's ways around it. I would say it really hasn't been a big issue for me at all, hitching it up. The next disadvantage, I would say, is that you lose ground clearance. You can see this is the coupling where you normally have your ball coming out here. This whole unit hangs down much lower. So you do lose ground clearance, and then you have your weight distribution bars even down below here. So we get very little clearance, and that is kind of a bummer, but you know, it's probably not as big of a deal on a travel trailer that rides a bit higher. The Airstream rides pretty low, so you know, we end up with just yay ground clearance sometimes, like less than 6 inches. But you know, it's not too bad. It hasn't been too much of a problem other than getting into those suspect driveways or places where I do bottom out a little bit. But if you do bottom out, you end up just grinding a bit on these heavy steel bars. Not a huge deal. And the last disadvantage, I would say, is this will add to your hitch weight. So I forget how much this whole unit weighs. I think it's 150, maybe up to 200 pounds with the stinger. Now granted, you're probably going to have weight distribution bars maybe anyway. Maybe the ones you have would weigh 50 pounds or something, but whatever it is, I would say, you know, figure that this is going to add at least 100 pounds to whatever your hitch weight is. Again, maybe it's not a big deal depending on your truck and you know what capacity you have. So with all of that said, the disadvantages and the primary big advantage being you get rid of trailer sway, is it worth it? I mean, obviously that's subjective. If I had a smaller Airstream, I probably wouldn't have opted for this. It might even be a little bit overkill for this size Airstream, but for me, I would say 100% yes, it's been worth it. The safe, you know, feeling safe driving down the road, not having to ever worry about trailer sway, it's so much more relaxing to drive in tow, knowing that I have this thing on here. And that's huge. You know, I don't ever have to drive down the highway with my white knuckles gripped, oh my God, you know, worrying about the wind or cars crossing the other way, or, you know, semis passing me and blowing the trailer out. So it's definitely worth it. I love it. I wouldn't want to tow without it, to be honest. Like I said, if I had a smaller, lighter trailer, maybe I would just, get regular weight distribution bars, and that's about it. But it's been great. Oh, and I should say that, yeah, I have zero affiliation with ProPride or Hensley Hitch. No one gives us anything for free or anything, but so this is just on my own volition. I really like the hitch. It's good. If you want to be safe. Anyway, oh, that's my phone ringing. Gotta go. See you guys later.